In 1898, two African lions known as the Ghost and the Darkness terrorized the workers on the East Africa Railroad at the Tsavo River. The project was halted until the lions were hunted down and shot by a British foreman. This incident was later described in a book titled The Man-Eaters of Tsavo, which was adapted into a movie in 1996. Today, the taxidermy skins of these lions are on display in the Field Museum in Chicago. In 1896, the British decided to construct a railroad in their East African colony, connecting Mombasa to Lake Victoria and Uganda. The railroad, known as the Uganda Railroad, was mocked as the lunatic line and was seen as a symbol of British progress in Africa. Thousands of laborers from India were brought in to build the railroad, which took over 30 years to complete. By February 1898, the railroad had reached the Tsavo River. Colonel John Henry Patterson was brought in to oversee the construction of a permanent bridge. However, soon after his arrival, workers started to disappear. Reports of lion sightings and the discovery of dead workers indicated that two lions were attacking the campsites along the railroad. The lions would strike every few days, attacking horses, donkeys, goats, cattle, and people. The situation became increasingly dangerous for the workers, and Patterson had to find a way to stop the lion attacks. The Indian workers constructed protective fences around their camps, known as a boma, made from the thorny branches of acacia trees, and kept campfires burning all night. But still the lions found their way through. In one incident, one of the lions clawed its way into a tent and attacked a sleeping worker, but in the confusion dragged away the worker's mattress instead. When it realized its mistake, the lion dropped the mattress and ran off. By April, the railroad rails extended some 40 miles away from Tsavo, and only a few hundred workers remained behind to construct the bridge. They were concentrated into a number of camps at the bridge site, and this is where the lions now began to concentrate their hunts. Patterson spent several nights perched in a tree with his rifle hoping to spot the lions, but couldn't find them. One night, one of the lions broke into the hospital tent and dragged away one of the patients. Patterson decided to move the hospital tent to a different spot, but the next night, the lion returned to the new location and dragged the water carrier out of the hospital. His head and one of his hands were found the next morning. Patterson then moved the hospital tent again and placed a railroad car with some cattle inside at the old location. Accompanied by the camp doctor, he stayed up all night with his rifle, hoping the lion would return. And it did. The lion managed to get into the boxcar and kill one of the cattle, but couldn't figure out how to drag the body out through the boma fence. Instead, it began to stalk Patterson and the doctor. When it attacked, Patterson managed to wound it in the mouth with a rifle shot, breaking off one of the canine teeth. After that, the lions apparently left the area for a few weeks. Patterson later learned that they had been raiding one of the construction camps at the railroad, which was now many miles away. Assuming they would be back, Patterson constructed a mechanical trap inside the railway car that would drop a set of iron bars if anything entered. For several nights in a row, Patterson himself was the bait, spending the night inside the boxcar to try to lure one of the lions in. A few weeks later, the lions were back. One of the cats entered a boma and dragged one of the workers out, where he was joined by the second lion. They ate the worker just 30 yards away from the camp. For the next several months, the lions would periodically return to make another kill. On December 1st, most of the workers boarded one of the trains and left. Only a small number remained behind to finish the bridge. 2 days later, the superintendent of police arrived with 20 men to help hunt down the lions. That night, one of the lions finally entered the boxcar trap, but despite a number of shots being fired at it from close range, was able to get out. The police superintendent and his men spent several days looking for the lions, with no success. They left after providing Patterson with a high-powered rifle. On December 9th, one of the lions killed a donkey, and as it ate, Patterson instructed a group of workers to approach it, making as much noise as possible, to drive it into the open. When the lion emerged, Patterson managed to wound it with the rifle. Expecting that the lion would return that night to his kill, Patterson built a wooden platform and waited. The lion indeed returned, but ignored the dead donkey and approached Patterson instead. Patterson killed it with 2 rifle shots. One lion remained, and a few nights later it attacked 2 goats. Patterson set out 3 more goats as bait, tying them to a short section of railroad tie, and waited. The lion returned, killed one of the goats, then dragged the entire railroad tie, still attached to the goat, away. Patterson's shots missed. The next morning, Patterson and a group of workers followed the trail and found the lion, which ran off. Patterson built another wooden platform, and when the lion returned that night, wounded it with 2 shots. For the next 10 days, nothing happened, and Patterson concluded that the lion had died of its wounds. Then the lion returned and made an unsuccessful attack on a worker sleeping in a tree. That night, Patterson lay in ambush in the same tree, and when the lion returned, wounded it twice more. In the morning, they followed the blood trail and found the lion, which charged at them. Patterson killed it with 2 more shots. It was December 29th, 1898. Examination of the 2 dead lions showed that they were both males and were, like most of the lions in the Tsavo region, maneless. Most likely they were brothers. Young male lions without a pride of their own often formed small packs or partnerships. In 1996, Patterson's 1907 book, The Man-Eaters of Tsavo, was adapted into a Hollywood screenplay by William Goldman titled The Ghost and the Darkness, which starred Val Kilmer as Patterson and Michael Douglas as the fictional big game hunter character Charles Remington. For years, there was much debate over just how many people the 2 lions actually killed over the 9-month period, with estimates running from the railroad company's figure of 28 to Patterson's figure of 135. In 2009, a team of biologists was able to do a chemical analysis on hair and skin samples from the Field Museum specimens and used isotope ratios to determine the chemical makeup of the proteins in the lion's diet during their last months of life. They concluded that one of the Tsavo lions had eaten around 11 humans, and that the other had eaten around 24. That meant that one of the lions ate mostly herbivores, with only about 1/3 of its diet coming from humans, while the other made up almost 2/3 of its diet with humans. Patterson kept the skulls from both lions and used their skins as rugs. In 1924, he sold the remains of the Man-Eaters to the Field Museum in Chicago, where they were mounted and put on display in 1928. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.